are here with Dr. Sylvia A, and fondly refer her to as her deepness, but I actually call her the mother of the oceans. Sylvia has been studying the ocean and advocating for our oceans for her entire life. She set and hold the record for the deepest dive in an untethered submersible, and she was the first female scientist of NOAA. And she was also named Times Magazine First Hero for the Planet. She has led over 100 expeditions and logged more than 7,000 hours underwater. She has also authored more than 200 publications, lectured in 90 countries. She's the founder of Mission Blue, Sea Alliance, and Deep Ocean Explorations. She's also a winner of many Explorer Club Awards, the 2009 TED Prize, and Netherlands Order of the Golden Ark, and also from the Royal Geographic Society. So here we are with Dr. Sylvia A and Liz Taylor. Alex?
Yes. Oh, and now I get to tell you about Liz. Wow. All right. So Liz is very luckily Sylvia's daughter, which is pretty awesome. Also, so Liz, along with her husband Ian, are the founders of DOER, Deep Ocean Exploration and Research. And over the past 17 years, DOER has grown from a consulting and field services firm to a full-service engineering solutions company. Liz oversees business development, government contracts, marketing, writing, and educational research. Their clients are extremely varied and include marine contracting firms, commercial diving companies, oil and gas service companies, government, law enforcement, environmental response, search and rescue, offshore wind services firms, aquaculture firms, mega yachts, expedition yachts, film production companies, universities, and marine science institutions. So pretty much anyone who could possibly ever need to use a sub, they've got you covered. So Liz's philosophy for DOER is to make a dollar but make a difference, which I like a lot. To that end, the company that works to implement internship programs and to disseminate findings of research and field projects within the scientific community. Their ultimate goal is to build human-occupied submersibles capable of full ocean depth, providing unlimited ocean access to scientists and citizens alike. So, cool stuff you've got to look forward to, folks who are watching.
So
there we go.
Before we started, there's a question that a burning question that many people have asked me, and so now I shall pose it to you, Sylvia. Before we go into the deep sea, the question we have all in mind is, what do you think is the root cause of the current situation we are in right now that caused us to be in prisons, for lack of better words?
Well, we need a healthy planet to have healthy people. And we have been abusing the natural systems throughout our history, but never more than during the past century. There are historically diseases that afflict humans. Smallpox, for example, was a problem for thousands of years, but it didn't really get to be a global problem until humans started moving around widely and taking the virus with them. So Hawaii had no contact with the virus until Europeans arrived and brought it with them. The same is true with North America. The Native Americans suffered terribly, not just from smallpox, but other diseases. We are now connected, which is a really good thing in so many ways, but the downside is that we have provided corridors for communicating and spreading the various diseases that humans have. Anywhere can go everywhere. And again, the good side is now we know we can connect, we can talk to people, we can take action on a global scale. But the origin of so many of the things that afflict humans come because of what we have done to afflict nature. So it's true with the ocean, it's true on land. The current virus appears to have its origin in the wildlife markets that are common in China, but they're not limited to China. You see them in Africa. You see them all over the world, actually.
Absolutely.
And it's also with the farm animals. Wherever we, and yeah, we have developed, again, sort of set the table by having, for viruses that we're susceptible to, by really unraveling the natural systems that maintain the integrity of the planet as a whole. Underlying the current crisis with the virus, though, is what we're doing to the nature of the planet as a whole. The connection between changing the chemistry of the planet, changing the temperature of the planet. We look in the mirror, we can see who's doing this, it's us. That we, again, are exposing ourselves to additional risks.
And particularly the Arctic regions, the polar regions.
Yes,
Yeah.
melting faster.
Melting much faster.
Right. So the connection is very straightforward and very clear. But again, the good news, we now know what we could not know 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. The knowledge keeps accelerating at the same time that the problems are accelerating.
That's true.
Yep. Thanks for that. In continuance of that idea, I guess, and this is to both of you, what role do you feel that ocean protection and exploration plays in potentially stemming the effects of future pandemics or preventing them from happening in the first place?
Well, the ocean, we now know, did not appreciate when I was a child, but the children of today, you certainly have grown up with that image of Earth from space that didn't
True.
exist. The smartest people who ever lived years ago, even Einstein, never got to see what Earth looks like from afar. Now we see, as it is sometimes called, the pale blue dot in the universe of really unfriendly alternatives. There really is no alternative to our home, our blue planet. Taking care of the ocean is a priority because the ocean drives planetary chemistry, governs climate, shapes and governs the temperature of the chemistry. If we fail to take care of the ocean, really nothing else matters. It's the backbone of our life support system.
And it truly is. And, you know, we've been extracting so many things from the ocean, whether it's, you know, wildlife or oil and gas or sand, even just basic things like this that really are being extracted at completely unsustainable levels. And we're not really investigating the oceans in ways that could really be beneficial to us. I mean, look at the number of naturally occurring viruses and bacteria and other organisms that we could be using for biomedical research. In fact, some of the early COVID-19 studies have been really based on some of the microbes that came originally from geothermal vents in freshwater systems, but are also found in deep ocean vents. And why do we want to mine these areas when we could be really looking at them as in terms of how they could be more helpful to us if left intact or discreetly sampled and explored?
What we didn't know, again, when I was a child, was how important the beneficial microbes are.
Even in our own bodies, we're full of beneficial microbes.
Yeah. We can't live without them.
You know,
And it's
Liz, you mentioned earlier on about the Arctic. We are losing the ice platform in the Arctic and also the permafrost. What do you think of the consequence of that, of losing the permafrost in the Arctic?
It's not just habitat, it's carbon dioxide and methane going into the atmosphere, accelerating the warming with profound effects back to the Arctic, but also the whole world. So there's a magnified need to protect the Arctic because of the magnified role that the Arctic and the Antarctic, the polar regions, have on shaping planetary climate. But looking at it from the standpoint of the diversity of life. Both areas, when you look at from the surface, it looks pretty bleak and barren with a few really, hefty organisms like polar bears and seals, sea lions, or in Antarctica, these hardy penguins and other creatures. But underwater, the diversity of life is enormous. And life on the land, whether it's in the polar regions or elsewhere in the world, really we're reliant on life in the ocean. It's partly carbon capture, oxygen generation, but it's just the Earth is alive. It's not just rocks and water, it's a living system. And so we're now able, for the first time, to connect the dots and see cause and effect on a scale that should have everyone riveted to what's happening in the Arctic, what's happening in the Antarctic, what's happening in the ocean, what's happening to rainforests, because it all ties together back to us.
Back to us, exactly. And the polar regions are one of these areas that would be very easy for us to protect because they are difficult to access. Particularly until now. I mean, why are we spending so much fuel and time and energy to go out and collect excess krill? There is no excess in nature. It's just maddening.
Yeah. I guess on this topic, this conversation reminded me of one that I was having with my friend Jennifer the other week about Yellowstone. And initially it was one of those places that was protected just because it was so beautiful, but such incredible discoveries have come out of it, like the extremophile bacteria that lives there. And one of them in particular wound up being the one that allowed us to start performing polymerase chain reaction, PCR, which is the only reason that we can do so many of the experiments in science that we can. So it's this one animal that we accidentally protected because we protected a place because it's pretty. So it's like, I think this applies to a lot of parts of the ocean where it's easy to protect the places that are beautiful because we can see them on the surface and it's easy to get to. But what we really need to be focusing on are not just those, but the deeper areas that are harder to see, that maybe aren't just aesthetically pleasing to people because they're extremely important to us, whether we realize it or not. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how being able to explore the deep sea with subs and making submarine access easier for people all over the world is a direction that we need to be headed in.
Well, one thing I think is really interesting on the land, we've had the wisdom to protect areas of, migratory routes, for different species, birds and butterflies, things of this nature. You kind of connect the dots of where do they need to go for, breeding and feeding and kind of understanding their life cycle. And in the ocean, there's lots of spaces where that occurs in a vertical way as well as crossing, great distances. So migrations. So it's
from the midwater to the surface and in the deep sea, it all ties together. But we're just beginning to explore the ocean. That's, I think, one of the biggest discoveries of the 20th century and now into the 21st is how little we actually know. We know enough to know that the ocean drives the backbone of what keeps us alive, and that if we fail to take care of the ocean, really all the things we care about, our health, our security, our economy, of course. But, most important thing that we take from the ocean is our existence. Knowing that is the key. So we should really be careful about future exploitation. First, we absolutely need to know what's there.
And it's really interesting that, the scuba divers really start to have this ability to understand these connections, and especially they're verging off into the deeper diving or the blackwater diving, night diving. They start to see some of these animals that are coming up through the vertical migrations, and it's really the time when we need to then take that next step and be going down in human-occupied vehicles to be able to really have that luxury and that gift of time to spend in the deeper environments and understand what those animals are doing.
So, we know how powerful images are, whether it's art or photographs, and our two colleagues here, expert photographers,
exactly,
artists. And there's the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but an experience has got to be worth at least 1,000 pictures.
Yes.
And Michael, the way you have been able to introduce so many people as divers and bring back images, but the experiences that they share as well. But we're limited in diving to maybe 50 meters.
Mm-hmm.
You can, tech diving, you can go deeper for a little bit. But we really, when you think that the average depth of the ocean is 4 kilometers, the average depth, and we can dive to maybe 50 kilometers, and 50, we're talking about 2 kilometers.
2 kilometers,
for the average depth, and we can go to 50 meters.
50 meters, yeah.
So, and the maximum is, of course, where we ultimately
11,000 meters
need to go on a regular basis. Now, a few people have been there for a short term, and they've looked around and brought back news. It's alive. The surface all the way down.
Well, it's the verticality of it. We don't, as kind of terrestrial creatures, we walk around on the street and we don't really think about that volume of air and space above us so much, unless we have that collective experience of looking at the stars at night. But in the ocean, it's a completely different experience. We've got fish that migrate, vertically,
as well as
horizontally, and it's just an incredible environment to think that we know so little about it. But with the technology we have today, we can really have the ability to spend time at depth, much the way that a naturalist would go into the woods and camp out in a little blind and kind of see who comes to the water hole. We have that ability to do that in the ocean and just take that time to really focus in on an area and see what the dynamics are, the interactions between the different species, and really what's going on.
So Sylvia, Liz, in your mind, not every person can be a scuba diver or a scuba diver. How can the average person could be better connect with the oceans?
So many ways.
We're doing it right now, I hope, connecting people to the things that were not available to anyone before right about now, the ability to take images and share them across the planet.
How about putting them in submarines?
Yeah, there we go.
Please.
We need to democratize access to the sea. And anybody can go. It's like getting into a car, getting into an aircraft, getting into a submarine,
getting into a golf cart.
Well, Sylvia, you said something at a dinner event one time that I actually wrote down in my phone because I liked it so much. And it was because people were talking about how, submarines are one option, but you have, ROVs and AUVs and they're more accessible and blah, blah, blah. And you were like, this is what you said. I've got it written down on my phone. I said, you can send a robot in to observe a dinner party, but it can't taste the wine. And I thought that is the perfect way to explain that, because people are always saying, just get the data. That'll be good enough. But it's not good enough. We need people there. We need human perspective down there, as close as you can be to touching it that you can get. And I think that's the idea with getting subs.
I love all these wonderful robots, ROVs, AUVs, but there's no substitute for sending you or Michael or Liz or a kid. I really want to get the 10-year-olds in little submarines and access their perspective, their wisdom, their inquisitiveness. One thing that kids are really good at doing that sometimes grown-ups forget is to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
The kids tell us more about Deep Hope that we have established and hopefully launched the submersible in very soon. So tell everyone about Deep Hope.
Go for it, Liz.
So, for some years now, we've really had this goal built on many, many years of experience working with many different types of submersibles to know what works, what doesn't work, what can really make an impact, and make this connection for a great number of people to directly.
So simple to drive even a scientist.
Even a scientist can operate it, but really to build these small 1 atmosphere submersibles that can take 3 people each, and just like with scuba, we buddy dive them. So you have 2. One's kind of more kitted out for doing the image making and filmmaking, and the other one is more kitted out for scientific sampling. So they each have different roles and jobs that they do, but really being able to go anywhere in the world, be very transportable, and to, again, travel with making a very light, very easy footprint, economize, not sending a dedicated ship around the world, burning all that fuel needlessly, but being able to really get that gift of time. And it's, it's not it's all technology. It's easy to get it done. Tried and true, but we just need to actually get it over the line and get those collaborations going around the world to really expand this.
What's frustrating for me is, as a scientist, as a human being, that I've had a chance to use more than 30 different kinds of submarines. I've had a hand, and so have you, in crafting the design and building some, as well as operating some. The 5-year Sustainable Seas expeditions, using little submarines, one-person subs mostly, but knowing that there is a place, just as there is for getting around on the land, we need to access the ocean. It's almost like the early days of aviation. There are some little submarines out there, and people are beginning to understand this is really cool. This is really important. But what we really need are subs that are available and built so they're safe, insurable, so that we can have kids and teachers and fishermen and CEOs, heads of state, musicians, artists, anybody who has just this openness of curiosity that, I just want to go. And some of the restrictions on the wonderful subs that are there for science is you have to have a plan. You have to really know what the outcome of your explorations will be before you can actually get funded to go. I think we really need some basic exploration. You don't know what you're going to find. That's the point. We need to go find out what's there, and to use every opportunity to document, to establish baselines at this critical point in history. The world is changing so fast. We'd like to connect the Deep Hope subs with places around the world we call hope spots, places that are, if they're not protected, they're on their way with constituencies, people who care, who have identified special areas that, if we can inspire people to care, to go there, to explore, not just as divers, but as deep divers in submersibles, and absolutely use the other tools that are available, whatever they are.
They're all complementary.
They are. We need a full toolbox. Right now, we've only got some of the pieces that we need.
Right. And really, the goal with these subs is to really fulfill and build upon your body of knowledge, what you know works, what you know doesn't, and to really have something that is going to stand the test of time and be in service for many years, not just,
Well, we have many allies in this cause of people who have experienced the use of submarines, and their input will be crucial to making sure that when we want to go down to the deep scattering layer, 1,000 meters down, and get to know those creatures with lights down the sides, and some of the most abundant creatures on Earth are in this layer of life that migrates, as you point out, vertically. The greatest migrations on Earth are out there in the ocean, day-night migrations. We want to go migrate with them, be like the plankton, be a bristlemouth little cyclophony fish. And we have lights too. We can go flash, 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 and maybe attract some of the big squids and other creatures.
Well, light is the most common form of communication in the deep sea.
Well,
it's really remarkable.
Right. Take our own lights with us, but also to be able to film, perhaps even to selectively, not blindly, but selectively sample individual creatures that will help us tell the story. And when we can, gently return them back to the ocean.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
That sounds like the perfect way to go.
I think there's some questions for both of you, Sylvia. Alexa,
there are. I'm just pulling up. Yeah, I'm pulling up Facebook right now.
There's lots of questions.
Yes, there are. So let me start at the beginning. I'm currently at the end. Let me go back to the top. So I'm looking at them in order.
Splendid.
Lots of people saying hello, by the way. Everyone's enjoying, so thank you. So we have a question from Robin. Robin says, my question is that we're seeing a lot of changes in the atmosphere since everyone is distancing and staying home. What are we seeing below the surface? Anything positive?
Well, one thing positive is that noise reduction around harbors. I've heard that the orcas are coming in closer to shore up in the Seattle and Vancouver area. The boat activity is restricted, so I think it's like, I can hear you now. And I think there is that as a factor that we haven't really understood, the noise pollution, until quite recently. And we've done it in innocence. We had no idea, most people did not, that we could affect life in the sea by the noisiness that we have created with so many ships. Ship traffic, when you go back to the day of sail, which was not that long ago in terms of human civilization, the ocean was quieter at least than it is today. So there's that, but there's also, well, I hope that the fish are getting a bit of a break. World War II was amazing in some ways because fishing pressure, even at that point in time, is far less than what we have today. The fishing really dropped off significantly, and the populations of cod and herring, tunas were not even at that time greatly taken from the sea, but those that were rebounded. It was amazing. Maybe we'll get a little benefit from the current reduction in large-scale fishing. It ought to be a wake-up call. It really should. Yeah. We need to reduce, we need to eliminate, really stop industrial scale fishing. It's industrial scale killing of wildlife. Now, for some, they're dependent on ocean wildlife as a source of sustenance, but most of what we're taking from the ocean is feeding choices, luxury choices. It's not about food security, except in coastal communities in some places around the world. That's a different category. Mm-hmm. But if we can see a recovery as a consequence, it won't happen overnight because many of the fish that are taken take 30 years to mature.
That's true.
So having a month of a break will give them a little respite, but what we really need is long-term respect for what it takes to have the fabric of life in the ocean that until the middle of the 20th century, we sort of took for granted. We can't do that anymore. It's part of why coral reefs are in trouble. It's why, of course, the sharks, maybe 10% of the sharks remain. In some cases, in some species, far fewer. Mm-hmm. The oceanic whitetip, maybe 1% of them remain. So
they need a break.
They need a break.
They do. They do need a big break.
And Sylvia, what will you think of after this storm, for lack of a better word? It will be the new normal. What would it be the new normal after this?
I hope it's a wake-up call to realize that we are vulnerable. Humans must respect the laws of nature. We have laws on the books that make it legal to do a lot of things that are really harming us, harming our health, harming our security, harming the planet, because they were put in place before we could see what is now knowable, before we could know about the downside of the cheap energy that we call it cheap, the burning of fossil fuels. We've benefited enormously from burning fossil fuels, but now we can see the consequences, but it's legal to do things that are harming us. We need to wake up and see the skies can be clearer, the air cleaner. We can reduce the carbon going into the atmosphere. We can do this.
We absolutely can.
And we can see we're the cause, and we can also be the cure. Maybe this has that kind of an unforeseen consequence in a beneficial way, that we can link cause and effect. We have blue skies that weren't so blue not very long ago.
People can see mountains for the first time in 30 years.
Yes, definitely.
It's really incredible. Yeah.
But
I definitely feel like once we all realize that we're together part of the problem, then we can start being part of the solution. And hopefully this will be a way to illustrate that to everyone who hasn't realized it yet. So
thank you, Robin.
Hoping for it anyway.
Insightful question.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we have quite a few questions. So here's one. Sylvia, how can the younger generations use things like social media to get others our age to care about saving our planet and our oceans as well? Hoping to meet you one day.
Oh, it's frustrating, not just for kids, but for everyone to feel that problems are so big and I'm just one person. What can I do? Well, when you think about it, every person, but especially the kids, have superpowers. Think about what your parents or grandparents, certainly your great-grandparents, did not have the capability that kids now have. You carry it around in your hand, this little way to talk with the rest of the world. And again, when I was a child, cell phones did not exist. I know that seems impossible, but we have astute kids with the capacity to do what has never been possible before. You have the power to come up with an idea, start something. It's how all things in the past in human society have ever happened. Somebody comes up with an idea and they share it with somebody else, and then somebody else. And pretty soon you've come up with something that's changed the way the world operates. So whatever it is, the new insights that have capacity to make a difference. The real problem is believing in yourself and looking in the mirror and saying, what do I care about? Nobody can do everything, but everybody for sure can do something.
You say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Liz. Go ahead.
People really have that capacity to lead by example. It can just be the small things that you do every day, and you start sharing that with your circle of friends and encourage them to do the same. And pretty soon, you're sponsoring a beach cleanup, or you're taking some action in your community, starting with your
questions.
Asking questions.
Why are you eating tuna? Tell me again.
Yeah. I mean, some people have no idea, like, what does a tuna even look like? You just see these sort of slabs of meat, and it is meat, but so it's, become active within the school, within your local community. Start with your mayors and work upwards. It really can make a difference.
I say that kids have the power to change the world, to save the future, but in my opinion, they need to be empowered. So Sylvia, Liz, both of you are great parents. How would you encourage parents? How should parents empower their kids?
I think every parent should take their kid or kids out to some wild place and ask them what is the future they want. Look around. And if you do not have a child of your own, borrow one or two. It's that freshness of perspective. It's the knowledge that what is here today is changing fast, and we need to anticipate what it will be like in this time next year, this time in 5 years, this time when the kids of today are the grown-ups of tomorrow and making the decisions. It's a connection we talk about connections vertically in the ocean. We're talking about generational connections too. People are living long enough to know their grandparents and even their great-grandparents. I did not know my grandparents when I was a child. So one of the gifts of the current time is that we do have longer life, and we do have communication, not just this way, but across generations outside of your own family. And I think that there's reason for hope because of this, that we have the wisdom. You hope people who've lived and experienced and have been witnesses to the changes of the past half century, even the past few decades. Some have been around, I'm one of them, most of a century. And the changes are remarkable. We've learned from this. We'd like to see that what we've learned can be a gift. It's how people have grown through the ages. You learn things, you pass it along. You learn things, you pass it along. But the kids are learning things and passing it along.
Passing it up.
To their parents and their grandparents.
But it's so interesting too. I mean, it's one of the things that I think people can really do now while they're kind of sheltering in place, is to take that time to try to, reconnect with family and older people in their community, especially while you're kind of shut in and able to, again, get back to the question about using social media, but kind of ask that question about what did this city look like 50 years ago, 100 years ago? Go back and look at and again, the photographers there, where are those photographic archives? And go back and the evidence and looking at this change over time, and how can we go back and, are we going to start kind of replanting areas with trees? Are we going to start modern day victory gardens to grow food more locally? What are these things that we can do that
great grandparents used to do that as a matter of course?
Yeah. I mean, we
can do it again. Learn from them.
When you say you have to learn from the past if you're going to have a future.
That's right. Yes.
Right.
So
on, I guess, a continuation of that topic, getting people to care about our deep sea. So there's a question that says, how can we convince people in business fields or in government to invest more money in deep sea exploration, especially if they're more concerned about their ROI instead of exploration, research, and protection of our deep sea habitats?
We are getting the most important ROI, our return on investment, because we're here. We exist. If we didn't take another fish or another barrel of oil out of the ocean, we would already have taken the most important thing that the ocean gives, which is our existence. Everything we do beyond that should be done with the utmost care. There has been the perception with respect to ocean wildlife. I've heard this term so many times, and it's still in use. Underutilized species.
Resources.
Underutilized resources.
Yeah.
Not even
That's just
it's wrong.
A non-starter.
Yeah.
We're already using the ocean when you take a breath, when water falls out of the sky. Ocean makes Earth function in a way that sets this planet apart from every other place in the universe. This place is home. We need to treat the ocean, need to treat the natural systems. That's our home, our home. Every bite you take out of a forest, every bite you take out of the ocean reduces the resilience of those systems. We need to do it with care. Of course we will use the land. Of course we will breathe the air. We will use the water. We will take from the ocean. But we've done it blissfully complacent about the consequences. We cannot do that anymore if we are to have a hope of making peace with nature, which is vital to a future that is a place where we want to be, where we want our children, our grandkids. All of future civilization is dependent now as never before on the decisions we make. literally the next 10 years, think of the 10-year-olds of today, where they'll be in 10 years. They'll be voting, among other things. But the world will have changed. If you think the way it was 10 years ago, how much has changed, but the pace is accelerating. It's harder to breathe. It's harder to find fresh water. The fish from where they were even 10 years ago are plummeting in terms of their numbers. Only where they're protected or where people have really taken care have we seen stabilization and even an increase. It's true with birds. It's true with forests. We know what to do. We just have to do it.
And we've got to put the true value of the natural systems on the economic balance sheet.
Yeah.
We can't just sort of say, oh, the fish are there for free. I just need to pay for the fuel to go get them.
Right.
Yep.
But there are some really hard economic models and they're just not taking all the information into account.
It's like there's an endless bank account. We could just keep taking without accounting for
right.
what we're losing.
Yeah.
That's like that Tim Worth quote, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. It's right on every time. So actually on that vein of thinking, I guess, could we talk a little bit about hope spots and plans for new hope spots or what's going on hope spot wise in the world?
Well, speaking of 10 years ago, it's when Mission Blue was started as a consequence of winning the TED Prize, partly, although the idea of having an organization that would really be dedicated to caring for the ocean was already in the works, exploring and caring for the ocean. We called it the Deep Search Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It morphed into Mission Blue. And the idea of, in keeping with my TED wish, to do whatever it takes to motivate people, ignite public support, to have protected areas, hope spots large enough to save and restore the blue heart of the planet, the ocean, whatever it takes. Films, the internet, new submarines, but
especially
we absolutely have to have access to the deep so people know why they need to care. So we started this organization, Mission Blue, now 10 years old. We've invited people to nominate places that they know and love. Divers have a special inside track because they're like ambassadors for the sea. They know and see and go to places others don't know. And now there are about 130 places that have been nominated with champions, with community support. When someone nominates a place, you can go to the Mission Blue website, fill out a form, an application, say, here's why this place is important. Here's what I am going to do. Here are the people, here's the institution. Or maybe it's just a collection of individuals who say, we care and we will make a difference. We make a commitment. It goes to a committee of volunteer scientists working with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. It's the oldest organization for conserving nature that exists. Thousands of scientists around the world who have come together and meet every 4 years. But our Hope Spot Council meets periodically to review the applications that come in, look at them, make recommendations, give a stamp of approval, and when approved, these places go up on the Mission Blue website, and we're working with ESRI, the Environmental Systems Research Systems Institute,
mm-hmm.
ESRI, based in Redlands, California, 50 years ago, started with GIS systems, so trying to get the geological information systems, place-based monitoring, mostly on the land until about 10 years ago, when the ocean began to be monitored using the software that ESRI has developed. So we're developing story maps for each of the hope spots, where divers, individuals who are not divers but are good with a camera, are good with taking data, monitoring and developing a framework of information across the planet, so that if you've got images to input into the story map for each of the hope spots, and going back into time with, dust off those old slides you have. If they're geo-referenced, you know that this place in the Great Barrier Reef, or this place in Palau, or this place in San Francisco Bay, or any of the other places around the world that are hope spots, there's a go-to place for information to be gathered and stored and made available, a network of hope around the world. That's the goal. Now, there are lots of organizations that are supporting conservation. In fact, Mission Blue has more than 200 partner organizations, institutions, other conservation organizations, companies. So what we're hoping to do is to mobilize, and we are mobilizing this wonderful upturn in concern leading to care. And Ocean Geographic is certainly one of our active partners. National Geographic, Rolex is one of our partners, helping to sponsor expeditions to the hope spots that will then enable us to more effectively carry the message of why the ocean matters to everyone, everywhere, all the time.
And most importantly, having deep hope alongside to get below where the diving depth can be.
Onward and downward.
Onward and downward. Here.
Onward and downward.
I think I have one more time for one more question, Alex.
Better be a good one.
Alex, where are you?
She's frozen.
She's frozen. I think she's frozen.
She's in the Arctic.
She's in the Arctic.
Frozen in time. Okay, I shall ask the question then.
Okay.
What advice do you have for aspiring marine biologists and who want to get involved and they seem to hit dead ends in the field?
Dive in. Go for it. There's never been a better time to aspire to do whatever it is you have a passion for. And the ocean really needs talent right now, people who care. If you have an inclination to become a biologist or a geologist or a physicist or there she is.
Sorry, my internet had a blip, and I've been running off my phone's hotspot now. So weird. Sorry. Continue.
If you love the ocean and like Alex, you are a musician as well as an artist, photographer, and a biologist, all in one package. You don't have to just do one thing. You can use all of the things you care about to integrate in ways that are now possible. And it's the best time to be a kid, I think, ever. We have not only the opportunity, we have a sense of urgency that what you do really counts. What you do really matters. It always has, but we can see it with new eyes. You have the ability to share what you discover or what you care about, and you can enlist others to work with you, whether it's composing an image or composing a song or gathering data about something that you really want to know about. Just think about the possibilities that you have, whatever they are, that nobody could have before.
Mm-hmm.
And respect the past. I love books.
Can you tell?
I mind books all the time.
No, it's very subtle.
Very subtle. Yeah.
But we have so many ways to gather, store, and communicate information now. We much that is recorded in libraries and books don't yet exist electronically. You need to go back and see what people thought about 100 years ago or 500 years ago. We have records.
This is why cursive matters.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good one.
Letters.
Yeah.
But
Journals.
think that what you're doing now is important to the future, because this is current history. We need to monitor and detail what's it like right now, because it'll be different 10 years from now. It'll be different this time next year. But imagine in 500 years, people will need to know.
Yeah.
How do you know about change? How do we know how much the world has changed? Because somebody wrote it down. Somebody took a record, and we now can mine the evidence. That's how we know the world is changing.
And there's projects like that, you know, where they're looking at old sea captains' logs and things of this
Whalers.
nature, whalers, where they're trying to go back and really understand how it was then. And now that there's almost 8 billion of us, versus, you know, maybe, what, a couple billion in the 1930s and 40s.
That's right. Only a billion in 1800.
Yeah.
And go back 500 years, it was half a billion people.
Half a billion.
Half a
So,
billion.
you know, it's the numbers are immense at this point, but so is the opportunity for meaningful change.
And 7 billion brains.
That's right.
However small, I think each one of us has the capacity and the power to do something.
Right.
Exactly.
Look at what you're doing, Michael.
And Alex.
Alex.
I'm sitting at home and
whatever we can do.
I'm trying to finish a book.
Yeah. We all start out as, you know, just a handful of something, little DNA, RNA, little packages that become who we are. And now it's our turn to give back.
It's so nice to see you again, Sylvia, Liz. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I do really enjoy it. And if there's any question else, we'll try to answer it later on.
I also want to take a moment to just share my screen so people can check out websites. So hold on one second.
The magic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you can see this. Can you see this? Yeah, you can. So yeah, the two places that I would encourage anyone watching to check out are Mission Blue and Deep Hope. So these are both nonprofits that have a wealth of information available to you online, both founded by Sylvia. So that automatically makes them fabulous, in my opinion. So yeah, please check out Mission Blue. You can find them pretty easily at missionblue.org. And the next one is Deep Hope. And Deep Hope is primarily centered around exploring the deep sea and building citizen subs. This is a bit newer. Mission Blue, as Sylvia was explaining, started right after her 2009 TED Talk. So it's a bit over 10 years. This has only been going officially for about the last year and a half. So Deep Hope and Mission Blue, both .org addresses, please feel free to check them out and ask more questions if you'd like. Now we're back.
We're back. Okay, so thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Liz. And we will hope to you in real person soon in life.
Yes, please.
Underwater.
Yes.
Underwater.
Underwater.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll catch you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Alex.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Have a good night. Yay. Perfect.